Hello everyone. The years of waiting are finally over. Digimon Survive has graced us with its presence long after some of us thought it may never even see the light of day. And now that it's here, it's time to decide, what is this game? Is it any good? Was it worth all the wait? I have played through for 8 hours now, gotten through chapter 2, and I think it's about time I give some of my first impressions of the game. So that if you are still on the fence of whether you should buy this game, hopefully this will give you a little insight into what it is, and maybe sway you whether this is the game for you. Digimon Survive is separated into two very distinct sections. It is a visual novel or a point-and-click adventure type game on one hand, and on the other, the combat is a strategy or tactics RPG, turn-based, where you're battling on a grid. So the 70% or so that the game has been told, and up to this point I fully believe it is even more of a visual novel, let's talk about that side of the coin first. So for the most part, it's fairly standard. There's if you've played any other games in this genre, there's a lot of games that do very similar mechanics. You'll, at the base level, understand most of what's going on here. There's the exploration mode, where you are moving around different sections that are generally rooms or very small sections. You can scroll through different people, different locations, looking for items that are either critical to the story or just items that you can use to power up your Digimon. You can find random encounters in there that will also increase your combat. Now, there are two distinct different types of combat you can find on the exploration. There are free battles, which you can do as many times as you want, but there's also these shadows that you will find that will have treasure chests and things inside of them. These are limited time items, so you'll make sure you want to get them. But this is also where you just talk to all of the different people. There are many different characters in this game, which leads me to one of my major things that I really do enjoy about Digimon Survive. I am so happy to see is that you can talk to the Digimon. Everyone's partner has just as much, if not sometimes feeling like even more personality than the tamer does. I especially have loved Labramon so far. She is amazing. I love her sass, and I'm not even a dog person, but I love Labramon. And it is so refreshing. It is something from the anime that is there all the time, and I love. But in the games, we have missed many times. And it is so wonderful to finally see that in a game. Even if it does mean I have to make 16 different voices and kill my throat and trying to voice them all, it's worth it. It is so, so worth it. While talking to people, there are two main things that you can gain from it. There is affinity, which is basically, if you've ever played a dating simulator, how much a person likes you. It supposedly ties into Digivolution Pass, but the main thing that you can look at with each character is it increases their ability to support you in battle. I'll go a little more in depth into what all of those different things can do, but the closer you are with the human, the more their Digimon will also help you in battle. So by getting closer to the human, the Digimon are becoming closer. The other thing you can gain by talking to people is mainly morality. Whenever you are presented pretty much with three options, there are three different stats you can gain: wrath, moral, and harmony. It seems like if you choose one direction all of the time, you will pretty much always get one of those three consistently. Personally, on my playthrough so far, I have mostly gotten harmony by choosing what I felt was right at the time. And this is the largest thing I believe that will affect the Digivolution path that Agumon goes down. It supposedly has other meanings. It hints that, like, oh, it's really important, and I assume it'll help later in the game determine which ending that I will get. But for right now, that is the major thing. It is a hidden stat. I have not found any way to see it, but it will tell you every time that it changes. And the final thing about the visual novel side is a free mode. Basically, this is when you're given downtime. You have a certain number of moves that you can do. You can decide who you want to talk to. Sometimes even going into certain rooms can cost you moves. And this is where things can be very different because you can't get to everything in every playthrough with this. You are limited. So what choices I made in my first 7 moves in the first 3 times is different than everyone else. You will get different items, different amounts of affinity here. I do not believe this will actually make any, lasting changes to the storyline, but it can change your affinity. It can change who you get close to. And other than that, it's go to different places. It is a more modern game that it will tell you, hey, this is where you need to go for story purposes. So you will never be truly lost on where you need to go if you want to actually advance the story. While you are looking around, there is another mechanic of looking through your phone. You'll be able to do this at any time, and you can load up the phone and look around. You can easily snap to places just like you can normally, and this is where I find most of the items lying around. This is where a lot of interesting things can be found that will help you out, whether just, again, healing items or equipment. And the other thing you can find are these novels. There are 3 different stories being told, apparently, of other people who have been brought to this world, and you're learning about them as well. So my last thing to say about the story so far, I do not want to spoil anything for anyone in this video. This is just a first impressions video. I'm trying to leave even the footage in the background to be as mundane, non-spoiler as I can. There are a lot of questions that I have. I'm a huge Digimon fan. I've watched all the anime movies, played all the games, and this is a very different take on it. So I'm very interested to see where it's going to go. Given what we've gotten recently in Ghost Game, I'm scared of getting answers, but because there's so much story to this game, I have more confidence that we will get the answers I'm looking for in this game. The other major part of the game is the actual combat, which is a small part of the game. You will be spending far more of your time talking to people, exploring, doing everything in the exploration parts. And for the most part, the combat is a fairly standard strategy RPG. You have move, defend, items, back attacks, side attacks. Those things in general are very simple, common. You'll find in every game. Though there are some things that it does in order to differentiate itself and to make it a different style of game. Especially because there's no Digimon game that has done this style yet. So it is really breaking new grounds. First off is every monster collector wants to know, since it's a monster collecting game, how do you get new monsters? So the recruitment mechanic is a little bit like if you've played any of the Persona games. You will have to talk to some of the Digimon. You cannot talk to every Digimon, especially some of the plot Digimon are not very amicable to talking to you. And they will ask you a series of 3 questions, and you are given 4 different answers that you can give. Out of the answers, there's one that gives you -2, -1, +1, or +2. Figuring out what each Digimon wants to hear is mostly trial and error. I haven't really found much that lets you figure it out otherwise, because there's a lot of Digimon that also share the same answers, at least in the beginning. So it's hard to be, oh, that's a vaccine type. They need to be given nice answers or warrior answers. No. There's nothing like that. So it's a lot of trial and error, writing things down on the side to remember. And if you fail at recruiting, if you fail too badly, they get angry and they're stronger. Or you can, if you do successfully get at least 3 points, you can attempt to recruit them, which some Digimon are fairly easy, like 66% chance. But there are some Digimon that are like 25%. So it'll take you a few tries if you actually want to get some of those Digimon. So just keep that in mind, that it is definitely not a guarantee. Or, if you get them up there, you can for sure get items from them. Every single time I have gotten items from them so far, they are consumable healing items. Or sometimes even stat training items. But then I've not gotten any equipment from them yet. While we're on the idea of talking to enemy Digimon in order to recruit them, there is another mechanic that can be done by talking. Because you are a team of a tamer and their Digimon, at least for the Digimon that are in the main story. The recruitable ones you cannot talk to in this way because they don't have a partner. But you can speak to them on your turn in order to give them a temporary buff. I will fully admit I very often have forgotten about this because the game itself has not been that difficult. I've needed to raise it up to hard mode because I've gotten through 2 chapters and not really felt challenged. But these are significant boosts that will last for a few turns, so when you're ready to tackle that boss, it can tip the scales in your favor, if you even need it. Another crucial part of the partner bond is being able to digivolve, which this is one of those games where you will not stay digivolved. Once you unlock Agumon's first evolution, you won't be staying in champion form forever. There is a few reasons for this, because mostly it costs SP, or what is the equivalent of MP, GP, they call it SP in this game, in order to stay in your Digivolve forms, but also to use your strong attacks, it also requires SP. So it is a trade-off to try and stay in your champion forms. But also your Digivolve forms are not just given to you by reaching certain levels or certain stats. You need to unlock them in the story, which, again, is a welcome change to the formula that many Digimon games do. Because digivolving with a partner Digimon is meant to mean something, and that is something that they've done in this game. As I stated before, the bond of a partner and their Digimon seems to be a very large part of this game, and I am loving that. So, whenever you end a turn, you normally gain SP, while Digivolved, you do not. But there is a way to get around that, by using assists. Now, you don't exactly have a lot of control over assists. You have a chance to increase how often it happens if you sit them next to other Digimon, or more Digimon, or Digimon that have higher affinity if they're Digimon that have tamers that you've been talking to. These assists come in a few different forms. They can be a team attack if your assisted Digimon is adjacent to the target. They can reduce the amount of SP it costs, or they can give back HP, SP, or both to a Digimon when they end their turn. So this is the very, not reliable, but can be very welcome way to get some SP back while you're sitting around in champion forms, or above if you get later in the game. Now, a very interesting thing that started to come up is every Digimon has a vertical height that it can move. Not every Digimon can jump as high, so this is also something that is important to keep in mind, especially because while you're on the high ground, there is actually a slight advantage to it. By being there, you increase the chance of scoring a critical hit against your opponent. Now, the last thing that is largely a part of combat is equipment. This is not stuff you can change in combat, and your Digimon aren't running around with weapons. This is not Digimon World 4. But they are crystals that you can use. There are 2 main types of them. There are ones that give you skills, or techniques that you can use in battle. They are just like your other moves that you can use on allies or enemies, depending on what the skill it gives. The ones you get early game are ones that increase or decrease your defenses. But I'm sure there are many others in the game still defined. I believe there are a total of 50 of them. The other type are ones that increase your stats. The common ones that are ones that increase your attacks, defenses, hit points, or SP. I'm sure there are also more of them. There are also ones that increase the amount of experience that you can gain. So they are a wide variety of things that you can find. Or if you have the 1-month DLC, you will be able to get one that constantly refreshes your health. It seems very strong. So far, the combat, as I've said, has been very easy. I haven't had much difficulty. But they are starting to mix things up as I go further in. There are escort missions, there are defense missions, there are definitely other things to do. So I have faith that this game will try to at least keep things a little more interesting. That combat isn't completely a forgotten part of the game, because when it's so much of the visual novel and story so far, it can be easy to think that's what happened. But so far, I've been pleasantly surprised. I don't think it's going to be a problem. So, overall, my thoughts of Digimon Survive after 2 chapters. I like it. I played it for 8 hours straight on stream and definitely enjoyed it. There are a lot of heart and personality to the game that I really enjoy. But if you are not someone that loves the story games, loves a deep story, if you're not going to mind sitting there almost 2.5 hours to get to the first real battle of the game, going through all that story, it could be tough for you. You have to be willing to sit through the story and enjoy it. If you're just there for the combat, it's going to be a hard sell for you, I'm afraid. But for me, I'm enjoying it. It has a lot of things that aren't normal for Digimon and have raised a lot of questions for me so far. But since there's supposedly 13 or so chapters, I believe, it's got a long time to answer those questions and alleviate my worries. So right now, if you enjoy story, yes, I can actually recommend this game. Go out, buy it. If you enjoy Digimon and its story and the bonds and getting to know other people and know the Digimon and their bonds with the humans, it's wonderful. If you're there for the combat, maybe the game will pick up and maybe the combat will be a lot more exciting and all the more different things happen when you can get to Ultimate and Mega and these amazing forms and maybe still more new mechanics that I haven't even discovered yet. But don't go into this game thinking that's the only reason you should play it, is just for the combat. I don't think you'll be able to get the full experience out of that. If you're really looking for something so deep, I'm not sure this is the game for you. But stay tuned and maybe, as I get later on, maybe my opinion of that will change. It very well could. We're still very early in this game's release, and so many people out there are loving it. I hope I'll be up with them too. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more Digimon content from me. And as always, everyone, remember to be awesome. Till the next one, take care. Bye-bye.